Episode 8. David's breaking point husband was shocked to discover that he had been paying their house rent to his wife. David sat on a weathered bench in the park, the crisp breeze ruffling his hair as he watched his children play on the swings and slides. Their laughter echoed through the air, a joyful symphony that seemed out of place against the storm of emotions raging within him. He clasped his hands tightly in his lap, his knuckles white, as he fought to keep himself grounded. It had been weeks since Sarah had left, and while the house was quieter without her presence, the weight of her betrayal still hung heavy over David. He couldn't stop replaying their early years together, the promises they had made, the dreams they had shared. He had believed in her, trusted her with everything, and she had shattered that trust in the most devastating way possible. His gaze softened as he looked at his children. Emma was pushing her younger brother, Ben, on the swing while their youngest, Sophie, giggled from the top of the slide. They were his anchor, the reason he hadn't completely crumbled under the pressure. Their innocence, their joy, their unwavering love. They reminded him every day of why he needed to keep going, no matter how difficult it was. As he sat there lost in thought, he heard a familiar voice behind him. David. He turned to see his close friend, Mark, approaching with 2 cups of coffee in hand. Mark was the kind of friend who had been there through thick and thin, always ready with a listening ear and a steady presence. I figured you could use this, Mark said, handing him one of the cups before sitting down beside him. David managed a small smile. Thanks, Mark. The 2 men sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the park filling the space between them. Finally, Mark broke the silence. You've been through hell, David, he said, his voice quiet but firm. But you're still standing. That's what matters. David nodded, his eyes never leaving his children. They're the reason I'm still here, he said, his voice tinged with emotion. I can't let this break me. They need me now more than ever. Mark placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. And you're doing an amazing job. I've seen plenty of people fall apart in situations like this, but you're holding it together for them. That takes real strength. David let out a bitter laugh. It doesn't feel like strength. Most days, it feels like I'm barely holding on. That's the thing about strength, Mark said. It's not about never feeling like you're falling apart. It's about getting up every time you do. And you're doing that, David. One step at a time. They talked for a while longer. The conversation a balm for David's wounded spirit. When Mark finally left, David felt a small but noticeable weight lifted from his shoulders. That evening, as the kids were getting ready for bed, David's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He picked it up and saw Sarah's father's name on the screen. Surprised, he answered. Hello? David, it's me, the older man said, his voice gruff but kind. I just wanted to check in on you and the kids. David felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. We're doing okay, he replied. It's been a lot, but we're getting through it. There was a pause on the other end of the line before Sarah's father spoke again, his tone softer. I know you're going through a lot, and I can't begin to imagine how hard this has been for you. But I want you to know that we're here for you, David. If you need anything at all, you just let us know. David's throat tightened as he fought back tears. He hadn't expected this kind of support from Sarah's family, especially given everything that had happened. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. That means more than you know. You're a good man, David, the older man said firmly. You didn't deserve this. And those kids, they're lucky to have you. You're going to get through this, one way or another. After they hung up, David sat in the quiet kitchen for a long moment, the words replaying in his mind. The support from Sarah's father, from Mark, from the few friends and family who had rallied around him. It gave him a sense of strength he hadn't realized he needed. Later that night, after the children had gone to bed, David sat in the living room, staring out the window at the city lights. His thoughts drifted to the road ahead, the legal battles, the emotional toll, the long process of rebuilding his life and his children's sense of stability. The pain of Sarah's betrayal was still raw, but he was beginning to see that it didn't have to define him. He had a choice, to let this break him or to rise above it. and for his children's sake, he knew he had to choose the latter. With a deep breath, David pulled out a notebook and began jotting down plans for the future. He listed everything he needed to do: find a better job, secure a stable home for the kids, prepare for the upcoming legal proceedings. Each item he wrote down felt like a small step forward, a reminder that he still had control over his own life. As the night wore on, a sense of determination settled over him. This was his breaking point, yes, but it was also his turning point. The road ahead would be difficult, but he wasn't walking it alone. With the support of his loved ones and the unwavering love of his children, David knew he could face whatever came next. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to hope. And that hope, fragile though it was, felt like the first ray of light piercing through the darkness. If this episode left you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next heart-pounding episode of The Veil of Deceit. In the next episode, the courtroom drama reaches a boiling point as Sarah's hidden account becomes the focus of the case. But just when David thinks the truth is fully exposed, Sarah drops a bombshell that changes everything. Don't miss the jaw-dropping episode 9, The Fallout.